Welcome, everybody. It is March 31st at time of recording. I'm here with Brian.
Hey Brian. Hey David, how you doing? I'm good.
Good, good, good. Today we're going to be talking about sleep habits and, yeah, kind of like one of the harder things that I've been trying to deal with is getting into a better sleep routine, better sleep habits. It started a while ago for me, and I think Brian, you've kind of, well, everyone in general, but you also have some thoughts on your own difficulties with it.
Yeah, for sure. I snore a lot. My wife hates it. I don't know that it affects my overall sleep quality, but I think I have some bad habits in general that keep me awake or getting waking up in the middle of the night. So yeah, definitely can relate to the struggle, man.
Yeah, definitely. And if you are snoring, it's definitely good to have a sleep study done. My mom had just gotten one done herself, at home sleep study, and actually came back that she doesn't have sleep apnea, which is good. But they also test her on her back. So it's hard to say, too, if like maybe she has it more when she's laying on her side or on her stomach. But I don't really know exactly how she sleeps most of the time. But I know for me, at least, it's probably wouldn't be a bad idea to get a sleep study done. She said she can hear me snoring sometimes, but depending on how they classify it, because you have to have like certain events, like obstructive sleep apnea events throughout a night, like over an hour for them to classify you as having sleep apnea, or above a certain amount where they would recommend some sort of CPAP machine or something else. So it's hard, but
Yeah,
might
I
be
don't
worth it.
know the I don't know the specific requirements because I haven't taken one, but I do know that one of the factors that they do is the amount of times that you stop breathing during like that period. Um, like my father-in-law, for instance, had sleep apnea for most of his life. In fact, he got a sleep machine back in like the early '90s or '80s, maybe. Um, kind of when it wasn't too much of a thing yet, but obviously advances in modern science. He got tested and he had sleep apnea. I think they tested that he fell or stopped breathing like 35 times a minute or something absurdly high, or maybe it was hour per hour. But it was a
Either
really, it
way,
was,
bad.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So he would, follow his REM cycle, sleep, and just wake up tired, and not to mention just snoring like sawing logs. So interrupting my mother-in-law or his partner, which is also not great. So just something you can't control, unfortunately, but you should definitely get looked at. So yeah, it is something that's on my agenda, but I know it's kind of a process that I'm not looking forward to getting improved. Like you have to get a pre-authorization here. It's a whole thing. So
Right. Oh, it is tough, but it's compounding interest. If you have sleep apnea, if you have trouble sleeping, it leads to more weight gain, leads to more caffeine intake, overeating, your higher cortisol levels. It is really the kind of basis foundation for health. And if you're not doing something well when you're unconscious, like obviously that's going to translate to more difficulties when you're awake. So I know there's probably a lot of people out there that have had, I know people with CPAP machines or have had sleep studies done. I know at least one friend that has gone and gotten a CPAP machine. So I think his quality of life has improved, but sometimes it's not the best solution for people. And the only other solution sometimes is losing more weight. But I even know men that have more muscle, like having more chest muscle or neck muscle or whatever, can also cause more obstruction during sleep. So it's always a crapshoot. And yeah, I don't really know if a CPAP machine is the best solution for everybody, but I think it's as good as we've got right now, and dealing with all the issues with it. But I mean, if it helps 10%, if you're doing 10% better than you already were, then who's to say? But I think medically, they're always kind of looking at the benefits as opposed to the side effects.
Yeah, a lot of I know a lot of folks who have like the actual CPAP machine, but I also know people who have like a mouth guard that moves like
Right.
your lower part of your jaw forward. That helps too. The other thing that I know about it is I know there are people who are a lot way a lot less taller than I have than I am. Who need it. It's sometimes just like how your the makeup of like your jawline or your kind of how like your skull is um made out. Sometimes it's just something that you really couldn't control with weight or anything like that anyway. So it really just all depends. But yeah, for sure. It's sleep is important. I mean, like you said, cortisol levels rise, and so that makes you hungrier and more stressed out. Getting sleep, especially 7 to 9 hours, is very important to, I mean, even your mental health. I mean, that's something that we've harked about a lot on this podcast. It's like if you're stressed, like I kind of currently am, then you're not going to be able to sleep as well. And then, the lack of sleep is going to make you more susceptible to being stressed out. So it's a fine, delicate balance that you definitely have to pay attention to.
Right. And that's the other issue with becoming an adult too, is because of the compounding interest of these issues. As a child, you might have had some form of sleep apnea, or it might not has been as bad as it is now, but with weight gain or added stress, lack of sleep, and all the other things that begin to add up over the years. Because yeah, I mean, I do weigh quite a bit more than I did in high school. Some of that was just muscle development, but a lot of it was increase in fat. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if I don't have some form of sleep apnea, but I do snore at night sometimes. And yeah, it can be difficult. But I think even with growing up, I used to stay up, if we're just talking about sleep health in general, but I used to stay up till 2 or 3 a.m. most nights playing Call of Duty during high school. And I would get up 4 or 5 hours later and get up and go to school. And a lot of times I had no issues, but as the years went on, I did start developing some anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, going back and forth at doctors for them trying to figure out what exactly was wrong with me. And yeah, so having to get put on antidepressants and at that point Xanax before it became a little bit more of a controlled substance, I guess. Like they don't want to give it out really because it is addictive. And from having it, like, yeah, I mean, I can understand why it's addictive, even at the lowest dose and how it helped me out. But it's
Yeah.
kind of how it started growing up. And I enjoyed having, I had 4 siblings. So that time at night when it's quieter and I don't have to worry or deal with or listen to or anybody else, or worry about, some argument starting or a bunch of
Yeah.
yelling or whatever else. It was like that was the time of least probable shittiness to go on. So that's
Yeah.
just kind of how it started, the entire process. And yeah, I had a hard time falling asleep. And, parents, especially with the health and everything else that had come out medically with sleep, nutrition, and all those things, your parents can only really hold you down so much. At that time, they didn't have any idea about the effects of video games or smartphones or laptops or all the other ways that we could stay up later at night. Because I grew up with a TV in the family room, and that was about it. You couldn't really listen to the radio or something else, like something that was just so stimulating that would keep you awake. But going to cognitive behavioral therapy earlier on in my life, it's kind of one of the things that they wanted me to work on. But I always reverted back into just trying to stay up later because it was either I didn't want to fall asleep because If I fell asleep, it meant school came sooner, and I didn't like school that much. College was kind of the same deal. I didn't mind class, but it wasn't as cool as hanging out with friends or just playing video games or anything else. And now it's like if I fall asleep earlier, then work comes faster. It's not like I work in a position that really requires me to have a lot of sleep to be able to do it. And if I enjoyed it more, then maybe I would fall asleep. But just trying to evaluate these things and like, am I giving myself grace or am I just making excuses or what? Um, so yeah, I have made some contributions to it. I think. Are you familiar with the concept of a fin dom?
I'm not.
Okay, so quick rundown, a high level. It's a man that gives his banking information or credit card information to a woman that is then dominating him financially by spending his money on clothes or dinners or freezing his card, like keeping him from being able to do things. It's like this weird, I guess not weird, um, weird in the sense of like, people don't know about it very often, but it is some sort of fetish type deal. So, like a financial dominatrix. But my idea is just to have one for screen time, like somebody that controls how much TikTok I'm able to watch or the screen time on my phone for these things because I have instilled a downtime on my phone, time limits for TikTok each day. But with me having it's my iCloud account, for me having access to it, then I can just overwrite it whenever I want. So maybe not a screen dom as it were, but maybe some way to have like somebody has like master control over my screen time so I can't just override it whenever I want to because I started getting in the habit of that.
All I'm imagining is with a choke ball and some chicken, some other, just like when you try to go for a blue screen, it just whips you on the ass while you're hanging upside down.
Yeah, I mean,
Pickles, pickles, pickles.
at this point, I'll take what I can get, dealer's choice. But it, at least
Yeah.
with the overriding stuff, at least it lets me know like how much time I was actually spending on it. But yeah, now I've just gotten in the habit of overriding it. So, I mean, if I did have some sort of parent, I mean, like having to treat myself like an iPad kid and having somebody limit the amount of screen time I can get in one day. But it's kind of gotten to that point because, the impulsivity that I have around just wanting to sit there and absorb this media, get that quick hits of dopamine. And it's tough, like trying to get rid of the dopamine hits. But
Yeah, blue screen addiction's a real thing. And, I know that they've done studies like kind of like what you were alluding to earlier, where like, when we were kids was you don't really have one TV in your living room and, kind of like put emphasis on family time, right? So you'd always kind of like watch whatever after dinner or during dinner, and or you'd have to fight with it with your siblings or your parents for what playing video games or whatever the case is. So, um, but kind of getting into my point of they've done a lot of studies recently about um, blue light and how it affects your brain chemistry. I mean, it just keeps you awake. I mean, I don't know the percentage or any actual stats behind it, but I think just in like the modern age compared to when we were kids, we weren't really, at least I wasn't when was in my teenage years. We had flip phones, and going on the internet was very expensive on your phone. So, and then we're also had cheaper internet rates like later at night. So, I was always go to bed early. I still find myself doing that now, but just my sleep quality is a lot poorer than it was when I was a kid. Just chalking it up to doom scrolling on the phone, or you know, playing a video game. Like I stayed up till like 12:30 last night playing Assassin's Creed. Like, luckily I work remote today, but if I were to have done that like on a day that I didn't, it'd probably be a much worse scenario where I wouldn't be able to sleep in. So, um, definitely falling into just way poorer sleep habits as an adult. Not that they were great to begin with when I was younger, but I felt like I was more rested. Um, and for me specifically, I'm sure that I do have some form of sleep apnea, or something that causes me to stop breathing while I'm sleeping. But I know that from personal experience, if I lose weight, then I don't snore and I get a better night's rest. So I really just need to put forth the effort of losing weight, because that goes a long way for better sleep. Lower cortisone levels, uh, less stress, better sleep. So, like I talked about earlier, it's just like that vicious cycle you got to get out of, that hamster wheel that you keep running, that you have to get out of. And like we always talk on this podcast, like we're our own worst enemies. Our brains are our own worst enemy. So, I think I wish I could go back to when I was younger, the one I didn't have maybe the time in front of the blue light, but I just have to hold myself accountable. I have to get that fin dom for myself or something, because my wife is equally as bad about scrolling late night before we fall asleep too. So both of our quality of our sleep is not great.
Yeah, maybe maybe you set up your uh, Apple ID to her phone, and she sets it up to yours, so that you're not able to reset your password or redo your screen time limits or something. Because I do set my downtime from like 12 p.m. to 10 a.m. or 12 a.m. to 10 a.m. So like midnight to 10 a.m. And I feel like it helps a little bit. I can I can override it whenever I want, but at least there's kind of that reminder in there, and there's like an extra step for me to have to put in to continue on with like more time on that certain app. So it's kind of helped a little bit, but yeah, I mean, my biggest issue is that I can just override it whenever I want, and there's no way to be able to stop me from doing that. So it's just tough, and my phone's in black and white, and I still find myself scrolling a lot of the times, and yeah, just kind of justifying it to try to take time away from my job where I don't like my job. I don't get paid enough. I'm not incentivized to do things. So it's like, my way of fighting back to just not pay attention as much. But like I said, I mean, it's not good. I'm trying to, you know, re rewire my brain a little bit to at least do some things at my job or take initiative on some things. Like I'm fine helping out my coworkers, but when management is looking for something, I'm like, no, I don't know anything about that. I don't
Yeah, I don't.
I don't do that. Like,
You're gonna have to give that to somebody else. I already got enough to work on right now.
right. And really, I'd spend 6 hours just dicking around. But yeah, for any kids, any kids listening, your screen time is really dictated by the family TV, and your, dad or whoever would be falling asleep watching NASCAR. You try to turn the channel, and he wakes up right away, like I was watching that, and
Yeah,
then you
yeah.
have to turn it back.
Dad, what was happening? A left turn. You're like, oh, all right,
Yeah,
good
and
guess.
it didn't matter that they had the only other TV in the house was in their room or your
Right.
parents' room. It was they wanted to watch on the big TV, and instead everyone else had to deal with them watching NASCAR, which don't want to put down anyone that watches NASCAR, but as a child, I think it's very hard to convince them that anything that's happening in NASCAR is very exciting. So,
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and then it's like whenever we were a kid and wanted to pitch getting a TV in your room, they'd always have like, just so happen to have like the Venn diagram, and it always so happened to be the no would always outweigh the yes for reasons to get a TV in you as the child's room. It's like, oh well, you'll just hang out there all the time. You'll your brain's gonna rot, or what was the other one? Oh, we can't afford that, or trying to get cable. God, that was like pulling teeth.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't speak to actual cable costs back then, but I know that nowadays it's like essentially free. I mean, to get, up to 5 devices or more for, like Fubo, YouTube TV, Sling, all those internet TVs. So, but, obviously back then you had to run cable or whatever the alternative was. So, can't really say that they weren't lying, but they were really doing me a favor in the end because I'm watching more TV and playing more video games now than I think I did when I was a kid because I had to share screen time with my brother and sister. So,
Right. I did have a TV growing up, but just the basic antenna, and it
yeah,
had a VCR attached to it. So eventually, it got to a point where we weren't buying VHS anymore; we were buying DVDs. So I really had no incentive on staying up late at night because there's nothing that I was going to watch on the antenna that I wanted to watch because it
right.
was all adult channels except Saturday morning cartoons that you could get with an antenna. So that was kind of an incentive to wake up early on Saturdays. So you wanted to fall asleep early on Fridays to be able to do it. But yeah, if I can switch now to only having an antenna TV and the only things that I want to watch are somewhere between the hours of 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. or early in the morning on the weekends, that would be great. But I don't think it's going to get to that point. But it's gotten so bad of all these companies that are just trying to steal as much of your time as they possibly can because that is their business model. Facebook makes money by being able to sell ads and wants to keep you engaged in the app for as long as possible. And they've gotten however many years now that they've been around, 20 years of data to create a way to keep you in the app and keep you interested for however long as they can.
Yeah, it's scary to think that Facebook is well over 20 years old now. Like, I still feel like my badge of honor of creating an account in 2006, coming up on 20 years of having one social media app, let alone the idea of social media being over 20 years old is, frightening. So, uh, I know Zuckerberg became a billionaire at 28. Um, and so that would make him almost, I think, in his 40s now. Uh, God, he looks like such a douche now, too. He's like in the MMA, like every other dorky tech person. Got to do Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Anyway, uh, back to my point. Yeah, it's especially with social media. Instagram Reels. I scroll through those endlessly, sharing those at sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning. Like the other problem that I have with poor sleep quality is like I'll be drinking, at 9 o'clock at night and just railing back water when I really don't need it. I really need to stop drinking water at like 6 o'clock so I don't, have to get up 3 or 4 times to go to the bathroom. Um, some days are harder than others. I feel like if I'm like super tired, like I'm just chugging coffee and I'm trying to balance out the caffeine levels with water. So it feels like it's just like drinking liquids all day. And, not only that, but I'm putting like my bladder in overtime. So fuck, when I really say this stuff out loud, it sucks. Like, I feel like I'm just living my life, but when you really just slow down to kind of dissect everything, especially when you speak it out loud, it sucks. Like, you kind of feel like you've fucked everything up or fucked that point in your life up, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of the point of it, right? And sometimes I spiral and kind of get overwhelmed with certain things that I want to work on. And I started taking first steps on certain things, but it's like every day might be a little bit different. But taking things like one step at a time. So there's a lot of things that I want to correct that I've been doing like one step at a time. So with eating out too often, okay, I I'll grocery shop once a week and work on getting that food in me. If it's even frozen food that's not as healthy as some of the other things that I've bought, well, at least I'm not eating out or anything. Uh, Doing things with exercise, standing desk, walking pad, which you're now on too. So
Yeah.
there's another like tiny chisel into a different area that you want to be able to correct upon. And yeah, I think the basis for why we get on and talk about these things is try to keep ourselves accountable for what's happening, trying to show kind of the reality of what goes into trying to make these changes. Because first thing is acceptance, right? Acceptance that you have a problem, or they're maybe not a problem, but something that a bad habit that you have that you don't exactly like. And the only way to be able to do something about it is to start chiseling away at it, finding something that works. So even today, I didn't walk as many steps as I wanted to. Told myself I was going to go grocery shopping, and I didn't do that. But I did manage to meditate today for a few minutes and felt pretty good because of it. That might have been stemmed from the fact my feet were real cold because I had a ton of caffeine today and not enough water, and I was trying to settle myself down so get my blood flow going a little bit more. But who's to say? Who's to say?
Right.
So yeah, it's all in the balance, and just living in the moment, being present is teaching me a lot about these things, and sleep especially. Realizing it helps a lot with like impulsivity. It's kind of going down the rabbit hole of thinking I have ADHD or something similar. ADHD, maybe some OCD, a little bit for these things, and trying to find out what ways that to try to be able to manage it. But even with medication, you're still recommended like a psychiatrist, a treatment plan, and working on these habits to try to keep these issues under control. And lack of sleep does increase the amount of impulsivity you have to be doing things like just without really thinking about them or the negative consequences of them, albeit they might be small. It's not like we're teenagers and making these mistakes that would have a big impact if things went wrong. But it's just another step in the process of trying to get better. So
Yeah, I get that. um, yeah, and I mean, it's like with the cost of, goods and services right now, just going through the roof, like food costs are going up. So it's like, you seek alternatives to like chicken, the cost of like chicken and eggs and beef, right? Like a steak, I think like a chuck roast is like $6.99 a pound, like pretty much every local grocery store that I know of. Like a couple of years ago, that was $2.99 or maybe $3.99 a pound, depending. But it's like you seek alternatives, and it's like the cost of pork hasn't oddly gone up, or at least not increased. So like I've been eating a lot more like bacon and pork roasts. I mean, it's not like I'm like
mm-hmm.
eating this stuff every day, but I just feel like when I eat pork, I just feel super bloated. So that's causing me to like have stomach issues. Um, because like I can't afford to eat, you know, not that I really could before. I can't afford to eat like a $7 a pound fucking steak every day, right? Like
Right.
chicken. I mean, the price of chicken has come down considerably, which is ironic because their offspring has gone through the roof. So we're eating less, and that's the other thing too. Is like I don't know if you saw on the news, but there's a local bakery that is like begging and pleading with the state of Michigan to intervene somehow on the cost of these prices because they go through literally 10,000 eggs a week. And, it's
Right.
right around 40 cents an egg, I think is the average cost. Um, because average dozen's like 455 bucks now. So if they're going through 10,000 eggs, that's, whatever, 120 dozen or something ridiculous. and they're begging and pleading because like their costs are going through the roof and their sales are dipping because they have to pass like the sale on to the consumer. So, you know, I know I'm kind of spiraling right now thinking about all this, but this is all kind of just an example of keeping your mentals straight. So, it balances out with your sleep. Um, but like sleep is probably easier part because you just have to try and sleep. It's not really something you can control, but like, you know, your gut health and your food intake is all related to your sleep, and it's all, like I said, it's all cyclical. So all of this is kind of just affecting that sleep one way or another, whether it's stress or thinking about it or overeating or whatever the case is. This is all stuff that you kind of have to consider, and take one step at a time to kind of diffuse, like, and it's hard. You're not going to be able to do all this stuff in one sitting. So it's tough. Like, I kind of just came to the realization on this self-help podcast that we hark on.
No, you would imagine sleep would be an easy thing to do, but you have to commit yourself to it. There's always going to be variables that affect your ability to be able to fall asleep at a good enough time. You had too much caffeine that day, or you're up, you don't really know why you can't fall asleep, so you don't want to lay in bed and toss and turn for however long, or your partner's staying up later. So with any type of change like that, you have to get your partner on board and developing good sleep habits, or sleep routine. At a certain time, you brush your teeth, you take your medication, you go to the bathroom or set your clothes out for work or whatever the next day. For me, at least, I have my sleep supplements and also my melatonin. So some nights I'll take L-theanine, apigenin, magnesium threonate or magnesium glycinate, along with melatonin. Sometimes 3 or 4 hours before bed, and usually I get into bed, figure out like a time. This is what I'm trying to do now. Obviously, it doesn't work all the time, but
Right.
usually around 10:30 or 11 o'clock, the only thing I want to do is read. But sometimes you're more tired that day, so you don't have as much effort. You don't want to read because reading is harder than just watching videos. So if I'm really tired, I might just watch a show, or I might just scroll on my phone or do something like that. So yeah, it is hard. It is hard every day to have the discipline and the balance to be like, I am falling asleep at this time, I am getting up at this time, which might be easier for work because you have to be up at that time. But when the weekend rolls around, it might not be as simple. Or you might go out date night or go see a movie on Friday night, or there's a higher chance you're going to be out later on Friday and Saturday than there is during the week. So how do you compensate for that? Is it better to still wake up at the same time and just deal with being tired all day, so that way Sunday comes along and you're not falling asleep 1 or 2 hours later than you normally would? Or if you get into a good routine throughout the week and then the weekend comes around and you have stuff around the house to do that interrupts your routine, how do you stick with it? How do you keep on it? But at the end of the day, with the discipline that's surrounding it and that what it needs to be for you to be able to do that, it's tough. Because who's to say I'm in bed at 10:30, I'm asleep by 11:30? It doesn't always work like that. And I think it's okay that it doesn't, but at the same time, it is one of the harder things to do. And it comes down to mental state, what you have to do the next day, and whether or not to journal or write down things that you want to accomplish the next day, doing meditation, reading, breathing techniques. It's a mixed bag of stuff that you can do. But some nights, if I'm overstimulated, I can't put myself down.
Yeah, exactly. That's not necessarily with the reading, but I do find myself when I'm playing a video game, even if I get to the objective that I want to do, like if I want to, like, you know, unlock this area or, attack this boss or do these side quests, sometimes I just like get addicted to the actual game itself and like not want to put it down, even though I'm like accomplished even more than I thought I would. Um, I just don't want to put the controller down. And that's the same thing with like drinking water at 9 o'clock at night. It's like I'm hydrating myself, but all I'm really doing is just borrowing it and having to repay it back at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, you might want to get that checked out too, because I don't think that's normal.
I've I will, yeah. It's I don't think it's a actual like internal issue going on. I just think that I just consume way too much water because I do find myself going to the bathroom a lot, especially during the day when I work in office. Um, but see, that's the thing too is like I work from home, so like I'm kind of out of routine already. I didn't sleep that great last night because I was up late playing video games, so I'm kind of already out of my routine. Like I'm not consistent with it. Um,
Right.
as soon as I feel like I go back in office, I'm like I'm gonna drink more water, and then like I'll be fine for the rest of the night, and I don't have to drink late. So, or you know, let me rephrase that. I don't. I feel like I don't have to drink like because I feel dehydrated. So you know, it's it's 100% a brain like my own brain working against me. But yeah, I mean, but no, it's one other thing that I have to see the doctor for anyway. So
Well, yeah, it might be a leftover from your drinking habits, right? Then you switch to like soda or like diet soda for a while. You're like drinking a ton of that, and now it's down to water, which is good. I mean, it's just water. Like it's going to take a lot to drown you from the inside,
right,
but yeah,
yeah. I mean, when I was drinking, gosh, I would drink half of a fifth in a night some nights, and I feel like I was not going to the bathroom nearly as much. Um, but on the flip side of that, it's because your liver is going to process to detoxify your body of the alcohol. So, I didn't necessarily find myself going to the bathroom more during the day following, but um, I think I definitely have greater volume now than what I did, but I'm also consuming more. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely kind of like a addict type thing, kind of like to in my brain that I'm, you know, balancing that for not drinking alcohol for almost 11 months now.
yeah. Congrats on that. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
thanks. Yeah, it's hard at first, but now it's kind of just become my routine. Like, I actually just sold a couple of expensive bottles to a buddy of mine. Um, you know, so I'm making money on my former addiction, but um, I just got to get them out of here. I got to get the temptation out, but I also want to be able to make money on it. So, um,
Right. Yeah.
but yeah,
Maybe like one of those water jugs with like the time of day stamped on them. Maybe that would help and give you like a little reminder as to how much water you need throughout the day. Because it
yeah,
seems like you're on the opposite side. I think a lot of people don't get enough water throughout the day, so they need something to help them supplement to get them to drink throughout the day, and in certain intervals. So like each hour, you should be drinking this much water. Whereas I think I will chug a bunch of water, then not drink any, and then chug a bunch of it like a few hours later. But yeah, maybe that would help kind of break things up for you a little bit because you're probably like finishing the jug before you're done at the office. So maybe that would give you a just a better idea as to how much volume you're consuming.
yeah. I mean, I have want to say a 20 ounce. It's like 18 or 20 ounce like water bottle that I fill up like probably every other hour. So I mean that's at least 4 or 5. So that's probably anywhere between 100 and 120 ounces of water, which is twice the almost twice the daily recommendation. I think because I think it's like 60 or 64 ounces what you're supposed to consume for the average person. So I'm far above that. And I kind of do it in such a short time period. I think my body just hasn't had time to kind of catch up from all that. So that's why I spend, the next 10 or 15 or sorry, next couple hours just pissing my brains out.
Yeah, it could have something to do with electrolytes too. There's like mineral drops that I used to buy that you can get because with coffee as a diuretic and how much water you're drinking, there could be less electrolytes in your system. Or I think the electrolytes could help to retain some of the water, I guess, and pull it into your cells instead of just, it goes in and it comes out. But yeah, it's always hard to tell because if you're
Right.
just constantly chugging water all the time, like your urine shouldn't be clear. It should have like a little tinge of yellowness to it. But if you're, you know, actively thirsty a lot of the times too, like maybe that is something that's going on that's making you feel that way. But who's to say?
Yeah.
Really, water drinking habits. It's not bad what you have right now, but from what you're explaining with having to get up and throughout the middle of the night, however many times, and with the coffee that you drink and adding into it, so it's like good. You're replacing the water that the coffee is making you eject from your
Yeah.
system for being a diuretic. But
Right.
yeah, I think it could be like electrolytes or yeah, maybe just like over drinking or something. But it's not a bad habit to have with drinking too much water because I know we need a lot to flush out all the crap we put in our system every day.
Yeah. And it really doesn't even help kind of drive the hunger down either. Like, I mean, I'm not like, I don't say I'm not like hungry when I drink a lot of water. Um, but it, you know, I I'm still kind of like an overeater at certain meals, and then I just won't eat the rest of the day, which is not also healthy. So maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. Trying to balance my well, it's currently addicted brain. So one more thing I gotta figure out.
Yeah. Well, it's tough, right? With being present and being aware of these things, you begin to notice and you start to identify a lot of stuff that you wish you could change. And ignorance is bliss, I think, is probably the truest statement I've ever heard. Because if I could just walk through life thinking that I'm not doing anything wrong, there's no issues that I'm doing, and never have to work on some of these things, and yeah, I'd probably be a lot happier. But just the realization and trying to look and keep tabs on where you're at and where you're headed, yeah, it is kind of discouraging sometimes. But just focus on the things that you can control. And I think one of the things that you can't control is how fast it's going to be until some of these things are resolved, or maybe eventually kind of come to terms with some things that you don't, uh, that are hard for you to change, and that you don't really have an issue with having to change right now. If you could fix, if I told you you could fix 60% of the stuff that you want to fix right now, and the other 40% you're just going to have to live with, I think most people would take that deal.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So yeah, it's
Yep.
just life, I guess. But with the chicken stuff and the food prices and everything, I was looking at getting a worm bin for like composting, and still looking at garden plants to buy and all this other stuff. I was looking at a Fuji apple tree yesterday. You can get for like $40, and they end up being like 8 to 10 feet tall, 8 to 10 feet wide, but it takes about 3 to 5 years to bear fruit.
Mm.
So that's not the greatest. But yeah, just like trying to get past like this ultra consumerism stuff. Like we've gotten so accustomed to having grocery store stocked with whatever food that you actually wanted. The streaming services and music streaming services and everything else to just have all the entertainment that you want. But I think too, even with like these iPad kids or the newer generations growing up with having, so much stimulation early on in development and everything, it's like trying to revert back and doing things, and sometimes that you're bored or things that you don't really want to do. It's a lot tougher when the alternative is something that's going to give you a huge dump of dopamine that you can just pull out of your pocket and start doom scrolling on anything. So the screen limits and the downtimes and all that, and continuing to try to work on. But yeah, it's going to take some time. The meditation thing is another avenue that I'd like to check. So I'll probably end up doing is setting a block on everything on my phone, my iPad for 15 minutes each day. So I can't access anything and just do the meditation, which it would be nice to have some sort of app that you could set those things up to where like meditation is the only app that you can access. Because eventually I'm going to work towards having Kindle being the only app that I can access on my phone or on my iPad past, say, 10:30 p.m. And I think that would help at least a bit with a reminder. But like I said, if there was some way that I couldn't, uh, I couldn't change the settings or I couldn't override the time limits on these things, that I think I would be doing a lot better. So I don't know. Maybe that's our next company. You pay us to set screen limits on your stuff, and if you want to change anything, it's like $100.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's actually a great idea. I don't know if you would have to have.
Yeah, it's the
I'm
screen dom thing, dude. We just get we get some hot ladies, some hot men. Be like, oh, you sure you want to watch TikTok, you little piggy? Huh?
you little bastard,
You can
you.
sign up for like, yeah, some negative talk or like some positive talk. You're like, no, you don't need that. Come on, you don't want that. Like, you don't need that hit of dopamine. You're fine. Otherwise, you'd be like, yeah, that's all you want to do, huh? You want to sit on your phone. You want to doom scroll all day. I know you got dirty laundry. I know you got groceries you're supposed to go pick up or something like that. Who knows?
Yeah, you don't want to watch this 10th reel of Airplanes with Max that you've watched in the last, like, you've replayed like 12 times. You don't want to watch that. You don't want to watch Canadian life in Japan for, 100th time on Instagram. No, you're a dirty little whore. You don't need that.
Yeah, you sign up for impersonations or any type of talk that you want to be happening to you. But yeah, I think if there was a way to give somebody access just to make changes on your behest for screen time limits or whatever, I think that would be good. However, I don't think for security purposes, I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, and if you just wanted to like start a software company that did that, I'm sure there would be some sort of security, agreements that you'd have to like make with Apple or Android. You know, if you didn't want to do like the in-person version of our said company, but I think either way, I think it's a great startup. We should try and get some seed funding for that.
Well, I thought about it too, where you just have it set up to say your Kroger app or your Costco app or something, and you would have a schedule to say you're supposed to go grocery shopping right now, and your phone would basically turn itself off until it got a notification from, say, Kroger or the Costco app that you have made a purchase, and then it would turn itself back on again.
Right. That's a good idea. No one steal this from us from our. Got a few more minutes in me. I'm starting to kind of get sleepy. I need to work on my take my own advice, but yeah, let's go.
Yeah, no, you definitely should. You're starting to feel sleepy. Yeah, that's kind of what we're getting at. Because I mean,
Right.
it's 9:30. When do you usually go to sleep?
uh, since Assassin's Creed came out, like 11 or later, but normally like 10 or 10:30.
Yeah, what's up, man? I've been wanting to start getting back up at 5 a.m. Some days I've been doing that, not on purpose, but with the trying to wean myself off nicotine. My body is like, nope, it's time for you to get up and it's time for you to go get some nicotine because that's what we want. And no, you're not going back to sleep. So, fuck you, brain. As much as it were. Uh, just always working against me. But yeah, some of the other things with sleep that I've been doing is earplugs. So there's a specific type of earbuds that only block out sound from a certain decibel level. So might be might be helpful for your wife in times where you're snoring and waking her up or whatever. Also, a sleep mask that I've gotten. It has like a little crimp thing to put over your nose so you can't see through anything. And also a wedge pillow, which is supposed to help with sleep apnea and also acid reflux that I have. So those have been kind of the three things that mechanically I've been using to help with sleep. I also have a bite guard that I'm supposed to be using because I grind my teeth in my sleep, and I have yet to go to the dentist because I know they're going to yell at me.
Yeah, I don't like going to the dentist for that very reason, but last few visits have actually been pretty good. So, um, but yeah, my my mom, who's actually like, I don't know, 95 pounds or something. She's super skinny. She still snores, but she actually got one of those mouth guards, and it helps her out a lot too. So that might be something I consider. I just got to really put time and effort into figuring out what exactly is, wrong with my sleep pattern. Um, you know, being in the moment, or trying to put the day together. My wife does use a sleep app, that like records her sleeping. So that might be something I could do in the meantime while I get everything else in line as far as whether I need a CPAP or mouth guard or lose weight, or all of the above.
Yeah, it's always good to try to look at those things. But I think with the wearables, I don't know if they're as accurate. I know they continue to do studies like comparing, and a lot of the times they're just not as accurate. But I'm sure the technology will continue to get better, or maybe not. Capitalism as it is, if people are buying it, then they don't have to make it any better. But I imagine Apple, because I know there's always the war with Apple against the apps that they have, because they do charge their apps like inordinate amounts of money for subscriptions and stuff that people use. But at the
Yeah,
same
and
time, they could develop something that integrates with your other apps, say like your Planet Fitness app that won't let you on your phone until you check in at the desk at Planet Fitness, or after you've gone to Kroger, or integrates with your smart washing machine that knows that you just put a load of laundry in the washing machine, and then will turn itself off when the load in the washing machine is done, and then will turn itself off when the load in the dryer is done. So it's like it can definitely be better, but the technology has really made it so that they want to keep you engaged on your phone as much as humanly possible. So it's like you're literally working against your mind, working against your phone, working against everything.
yeah, it's super interesting. I guess I didn't realize that Apple charges, those developers or whatever development companies a lot of or a large percentage to post on their, the Apple or the App Store, which is interesting only because I I read that it's actually kind of fairly tough to get on to the iOS, um, like App Store, because they have to like thoroughly test it and has to meet a certain criteria just to get on that. Only be charged, whatever 40% of their revenue from said platform. So that's funny. I think a lot of especially niche apps I think are very helpful for people and trying to better their lives. So um, I just wonder how that would happen or how that would work with a bunch of free apps. Curious about that.
Yeah, I don't know how it would probably just be something that Apple would have to develop themselves, because even if we were to develop something like that to say can um, interfere with other apps on your phone, which I doubt would be able to happen, because even Apple like allowing you the option for the app not to track, your data across apps, which I think they do anyways, because what the fuck does it mean me asking them not to do it is
Right.
going to change anything? But in certain states, I think they're not allowed to, like in California, say. But for an app to get developed, and if it gets big enough, then Apple's just going to put something in house and sell it as a service on their next phone release, or they would just buy us out to use it. But it's not like the technology is hard to like understand or get a grip on. It's just,
Right.
is it beneficial for them to have it? And they've probably thought about it before and decided against it for reasons related to making sure people stay on their phone longer.
Oh yeah, that's 100% what it is. It's like what Facebook is doing. That's why they have Facebook, they have Instagram, they have their own version of Twitter, right? Like they want to keep you in that family of companies no matter what, consuming content, tracking all that, and then selling it. So it's a cycle, just like everything else in life.
Yeah. And I do think like sometimes I question myself, am I becoming like my parents with thinking like, oh, music nowadays sucks, or, think back in my day or whatever. But I think, yeah, it is quintessentially different with the introduction to the internet. Not that I think like music is worse than it was back then, because I'm still interested in like new acts and new music and going to the concerts and everything. And some of the bands that I used to follow are still putting out music that's pretty good. But I think in general, yeah, things were better when not everything was a fucking subscription service that the only thing that people did was sit on their phones or try to take Instagram pictures so people knew that they were out and they were doing stuff and that they were interesting, or just spending so much time on their phones, spending so much money on other things, and yeah, just sitting there like that's all it is. It's like a fucking popularity contest, and it sucks. Gone are the days you just get together in a garage and listen to an album and hang out or meet up and ride bikes or go camping or on a trip or fishing or things like that. It's like most people just want to sit on their phones or sit and play video games, which I like doing those things, but there's not really many outdoor activity plans or just random get-togethers on any given day. Everything has to be like some big fucking event. And yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, and there has to be some sort of technology involved in a lot of these freaking parties. Like there's never a shortage of QR code to like enter some contest like a cookie decorating party, right? Like before it was just you vote and throw your whatever who you voted for into a jar and then it's randomly selected. Like as far we've come so far with like technology, but like I just feel like as a society in general and like for our overall health, like it makes this a lot worse. And like I know one of our objectives that we both had for this podcast was to kind of get off technology less. Be like our boomer parents or cave people where we're, sitting around campfires and looking up at the stars and finger painting in caverns. So maybe not quite that bad, but you know what I mean. We're trying to regress back on the social media because to reference it back to the point of this episode, being on your phone or being in front of a screen all day is just so bad for your sight. Like I know that the amount of times that I've spent in front of a TV and or computer screen has made my vision worse. Like when I started our boot camp in 2022, like I wasn't wearing glasses regularly. I would wear them on occasion, but I think my eyes have just kind of gotten worn down by blue light that, or maybe it's just with age, but I guess I would more attribute it to blue light because my eyes are quote unquote tired more often. It makes me feel sleepy. So, um, doesn't help that I've wanted to play this Assassin's Creed game forever, and it came out right around my birthday. But this is the first video game regularly that I've played in over 6 months. So I guess I'm kind of enjoying this as like a treat, so to speak. But once I'm probably done with this or beat this game, and maybe when DLC or whatever comes out, maybe I'll pick it up a little bit more. But I kind of just find myself being more having like more a more addictive behavior, and maybe because coincidentally I'm staying up later, so I'm drinking more. Maybe that's what goes hand in hand, kind of thinking about it now. So I know that I wanted to play video games. I think I talked about this on last episode or episode before. What I want to improve my hand coordination, I want to improve my problem solving, and I feel like I'm doing that, but kind of also at the risk of getting back into addictive behaviors. So I'm aware of it, and I'm trying to keep that balance. But sometimes there's just a boss that I want to kill,
Yeah,
figuratively, not literally.
right. But I think it comes down to timing too, because if you're spending time with your family up until a certain time at night, and then with doing this podcast, and like when you get off to do something else, or you might not start playing video games until 9 o'clock, and you get in a good flow state, and you want to get past a certain something, or you keep dying and kind of want to retry or do better at a specific level or mission that you have. So yeah, that is easier to let time slip away from you like that. So I think that's more about just the context of the game coming out and the time that you're playing it. Because even me, I would go to the gym around 8:30 most days, just because there'd be less people in the gym and I can get things done quicker. But with trying to get to bed earlier, I think my goal is to be waking up around 5:30 a.m., 6 a.m., and starting to go to the gym around those times, especially now when the sun's going to be up, as I'm riding into the gym or whatnot, and get that morning sunlight in my eyes and start my circadian rhythm. And then with the coffee or whatever else that I can get after the gym and kind of keep me there for a while, and just try to extend out through that, because there are pretty big correlational studies with people that fall asleep post 10 p.m. and their overall health in general. So trying to get back onto a better sleep schedule by that regard. But to your point too, I play video games with people on Discord, and a lot of the people that are on every night are on the West Coast. So they're not on until 8 or 9 p.m. and they'll be on until 1 to 2 a.m. my time. So if I
Right.
want to, I'm kind of enabled into playing video games late on in the night. And I've kind of gotten away from that, but some nights it's harder than others. If I was to have taken a nap during lunch, or maybe gotten more sleep like the night before, so I have an extra amount of sleep, had too much caffeine, or whatever it is. So it's really hard to really try to balance these things. And I think the other part of being present is being coming in and out, and sometimes being present to currently where you're at in terms of your energy envelope and what you're going to have to deal with that night. If I'm going to have to really take my sleep supplements, or focus on more like breathing techniques as I'm reading to try to get to a state of calmness to be able to fall asleep, or what have you. So I mean, it's just another thing to work on, another thing to think about, but it doesn't exactly mean it's something relevant that we need to take care of right now. But as the interest continues to add, it's just imagining the late, late age care on things. And it's like, well, if we don't fix it now, 20, 30, 40 years down the line, we're just staring at the edge of some disease or illness that had been developed, diabetes or high blood pressure, or uh, clogged arteries, or whatever else. So, it's just important to think about these things now, and there's time to fix them. But in my eyes, it's more about trying to get better so that my life, when I'm 50, 60, 70, hopefully I get that far, is still going to be enjoyable and I'm not going to be in a ton of pain or on a ton of medications to, keep me at some state of balance.
Yeah, for sure. I get that. One other, one interesting. It's kind of really off topic, but it kind of got me thinking about uh, disease and illnesses. So I was reading in an article the other day, I think in Men's Health, that we've advanced so much, especially in the last 30 years with medicine and science, that like we're extending life. And I don't remember if I was talking with my wife or with you or on this podcast, but I've kind of just noticed that like comparatively, it's like like my grandparents specifically, like I can remember what my grandma looked like. Obviously, and I can go find pictures of what my grandmother looked like at 70 and I mean, she was born in 1924, I think, and I mean, she passed away when she was well into her late 70s, maybe early 80s. But she like comparison to my mom, who turns 70 on Sunday, um, looked a whole hell of a lot older than like my mom does now currently. Like my mom still runs. She's in a fit body boot camp. She takes very good care of herself. Obviously, she goes to the doctor whenever she's feeling sick and needs all the checkups. Um, but the caveat to that is because people are living longer, the rate that people or the rate of dementia is increasing because, and maybe thinking on it now, it's kind of on topic of having good sleep habits now to help combat that. But yeah, because people are getting to an age more frequently that you're um, just like the age and tax on your brain at that age is more susceptible. So I mean, I think like the average lifespan is like 76 right now. I mean, when they invented Social Security, the average lifespan was to like 65. So, in less than 100 years, we've added 10 years of lifespan to our, and just increasing the better overall health. But the caveat to that is now you're not gonna be able to remember shit, and you're probably gonna have a terrible time, an uncomfortable life at the end if you catch dementia. So another reason why, I guess, to circle back to my point of this and the point of this episode of podcast is work on yourself now, get good sleep, focus on reducing your stress, work out regularly, and just, do better, be present. Sorry, I was
Yeah.
long winded.
No, well, maybe not long winded enough. I mean, there's thousands of different things that we can say and focus on and what have you. But yeah, take small steps, identify something that you want to change, do some research into how to start doing that thing specifically, being more mindful, being more present, wanting to exercise, wanting to eat better. And yeah, if it comes down to adding in one salad a week, two salads a week, or planning out meals, or planning workouts, or setting up good sleep routines, like how we're talking about here, then yeah, it's trial and error, learn by doing. And I think
Yep.
journaling is probably a good way to be able to do that as long as you're paying attention to some of the things that you're doing. How much coffee did you have that day? How stressful was your day? Did you deal with something that you normally don't have to deal with? Um, Things like that. But yeah, it's different for every person. And the high level for this podcast is just me and Brian kind of talking about our own shortcomings and the steps that we're personally taking to better ourselves. But your journey is going to look a lot different. Your destination, that where you want to be, might be different. But however many ways you can think of to be able to get to New York, you probably add in like 100 times more paths to get to where you kind of want to be in life. So just keep on going one more day. And, I'm glad that you're still around and still willing to listen to us babble on.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Babylon brothers and sisters.
But I think that's it for me. Ryan, did you have anything else?
That's it. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Alrighty. Thank you. And we will See you next week. Bye bye.